Welcome, everyone. This is the Powerful ITLS, the first one. We're designing this series of webinars for exposing those great internationally trained lawyers and national committee and accreditation candidates who are going through the process and getting licensed in whatever province, territories in Canada. Thank you very much for being here today. Thank you to the ITLN CA Networks Association for putting this event together, in particular, especially to Priscila Atkinson for working with the invitations and making sure that you receive those invitations and were able to register. Let me tell you a little bit. The ITLN CA Networks is not a new association. It's been working for the past 3 years. And the ITLN CA Networks with an S at the end is the joint effort of equality-seeking lawyers, legal professional associations, and stakeholders committed to improve the internationally trained lawyers' experience in their career exploration, certification, and licensing processes in Canada. Some of the examples of these internationally trained lawyers are here with us today. Claudia Garcia, she completed the Global Professional Master of Laws at the University of Toronto. She will tell you a little bit more about herself in a couple of minutes. But she was called to the bar. Congratulations, Claudia. She was called to the bar recently after jumping some hoops like we are all jumping those hoops. Priscila Atkinson also finished an LLM at Osgood, about to finish that LLM. Now is a summer student with the Ministry of the Attorney General, looking to her articling position coming up. Samantha Del Frate, articling student at McCarthy Treto. Thank you for being here. Also, her pathway is articling. And me, a little bit outside this great crew, my pathway was the law practice program, and I will be talking about the law practice program in a few minutes. I'm a lawyer in Canada since 2016, and I'm currently the president of the Canadian Hispanic Bar Association, and I also have the privilege to work with Priscila, Samantha in the International Trained Lawyers Networks, National Committee Accreditation Candidates Networks Associations. Again, thank you for being here. Let me hear a little bit about Priscila before we move the slide to the next point before we start our presentation. Priscila, how are you?
I'm doing great. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. We're very happy to be able to bring a few ITLs for you to know other stories and also maybe to find the one that looks a bit more similar to you and follow what they did. So I'm going to tell a little bit about myself. I am from Brazil. I graduated in a university from my Bachelor of Law 3 years ago. And I started my LLM at Osgood at the Canadian Common Law LLM in 2019, in the winter of 2019. So those that didn't have the chance to experience much of the law practice back home, maybe you can give me questions and you can relate a bit to what I did. So I didn't practice law back home, and after being called to the Brazilian bar, all my career experience was basically through internships and through a clerkship that I did in Brazil. But I am the living proof that you don't need a lot of experience in your home jurisdiction to get a good position in Canada and to get where you want to be. Because you have to remember that since we're talking about articling and LPP, when you are applying for summer jobs, when you're applying for articling positions, you are essentially competing with other JD students that are still in school. So even if you don't have a lot of experience, you probably have either the same level as them or more than them. And one thing I want to say is that we should never undersell ourselves or underestimate ourselves because we're internationally trained lawyers. The litigation skills that we bring from home jurisdiction and any other skills that you acquired through internship or through your years of practice that I'm sure a lot of people here have like 10 plus years of practice. They're so valuable in Canada, and I have seen in the mag that the lawyers really, really appreciate it.
Priscila, thank you very much for giving us all that passion and those good positive vibes to start the webinar today. Let me move to Samantha Del Frate. How are you? I think that you're muted, like in
I
Parliament.
am muted, and I think the running joke is that that has to happen at least once on every webinar that happens. So I did it. Now we can move on. Everyone, thanks for joining us. I'm good, Antonio. Thank you. So I grew up in Canada, and I'm also an Italian citizen. And I decided to do my law school abroad in Scotland. And like Priscilla, I had some experience in Scotland, but I did not practice for an extensive period of time. And upon my return, I completed the self-study NCAA exams while working full-time at McCarthy's in a staff position. And now I'm articling with the same firm.
Thank you, Samantha. What about Claudia? Claudia, how are you? Welcome.
Hi, thank you, Antonio. Congratulations on the presidency of the CHPA. Thanks for telling us about yourself. I'm really happy to be here. My name is Claudia. I am an internationally trained lawyer. I had my first degree in Peru. I was born and raised there, and I lived there and worked there from 2012 as a lawyer after graduation until 2017 when I moved to Canada. I do have experience before in government, in environmental law and compliance. And when I came here in Canada, all my experience was in really complex litigation since I started. So it was a fresh start for me in a different area of law, a different kind of practice. And I did the master program at the University of Toronto, completed there with a competence requirement for licensing, and completed the practice requirement with Rochon Genova on a part-time basis through an abridgment of articling. And I was recently called to the bar 2 months ago, in May. Yeah. And I got my license on the mail on Friday.
A little bit about myself. An international trained lawyer at some time before in my previous life, I was an international trained lawyer like yourself. I came from Venezuela. I was an employment and labor lawyer back home. And in Canada, when I moved here, I started the process that you are going through, some of you are going through now. And I became licensed to practice law in Ontario back in 2016. I'm practicing employment and labor law, including human rights in the workplace. And that's a little bit about my practice so far. Before we start with this great panel, Priscila, Samantha, Claudia, the process to become licensed as a lawyer in Canada is really simple. Okay, you're gonna understand why it's simple. It's a two-steps process. The first step is certification. Certification could be a law degree, or it could be the NCAA Certificate of Qualification. That's the first step. The challenge in that first step is to design what path you're gonna follow. And you can see that Claudia, Samantha, Priscila, and myself, we have different paths. We did different programs, but we all achieved the first step. The second step is, stage is the licensing process. The licensing process includes what you understand now as articling or LPP placement, which we will be talking about today. And it also includes exams, or in the case of what Claudia mentioned, the abridgment. So we're gonna talk a little bit about that as well. But I want you to have these picture in your mind that the process is basically two steps, and you are the master of your own destiny when you design all this process. So I'm gonna start sharing the screen for now. Before we go with the panel, just a quick reminder, the ITL-NCA, thank you to Samantha Del Frate, is organizing the 2021 OCIs, which is on-campus interviews for international trained lawyers, national community accreditation candidates. More information to come. You can go to the website and see the information as well. And next week, we're gonna have the articling information session organized by Priscila Atkinson and Michael Tam from Osgood Law School. just before we go to our content today, we have an email account, info@itlnca.ca, and our website, itln.ca, if you want to have more information or reach out to some of the panelists. So I'm gonna stop sharing the screen and we're gonna start with our commentaries. All right, so you saw these two steps, license, certification and licensing. And Priscila, Samantha, and Claudia, and myself a little bit, we're gonna walk through what that means in the process. So I think that Samantha wants to talk or wants to tell us a little bit about what the NCAA actually means and what's its importance. Some of you may know that, but let's have this refresher. Go ahead, Samantha.
So the NCAA, or the Federation of Law Societies of Canada, is the overarching body which you will apply to when you are entering all of Canada. So that means any province. And I think the process remains the same, but you would submit your transcripts from your law school, sometimes a letter of recommendation if you have extensive practice experience from your home country. And I can't remember if there's any other documents, but it's all laid out on their website. They will assess your application and designate exactly how many exams you have to do. And then from that point, once you get your official assessment, you can choose whether you want to complete that assessment via self-studying like I did, and you would enroll in those exams directly through the FLSC's portal, or you can opt to take the path that Priscila took or that Claudia took through Osgoode or U of T, and there's a few other schools as well throughout Canada. I think there's 4 law schools in total. Again, they're all listed on the FLSC's website that offer different combinations of programs to meet those requirements. Once you complete those requirements, again, you can do them at your own speed for the most part. Once you complete all those requirements, you'll be issued a certificate of qualification, and that certificate of qualification is sent to the Law Society in whatever province you choose to enter the licensing process in. For myself, it was Ontario. And once that certificate is submitted to that Law Society, you can then study for the bar exams and article or enroll in the LPP, whichever path you choose in your specific province.
So Sam, you went through the NCAA process and you're now articling, correct?
That's right.
That's your path. What about you, Priscila?
I'm still going through the NCAA process. I am currently a summer student at the MAG, and I'll be articling next year.
Mm-hmm. And is there a difference between your path, Priscila, and Samantha's? Or is it, so I know that you did some exams with Osgoode, so NCAA exams with Osgoode in your Master of Laws. Sam, you took the exams directly?
So I came from a mixed jurisdiction. Scotland is mixed. So I was assigned 9 exams. I could have chosen to go to a law school, but it was my personal preference to do it on my own. And I did it all myself. The way I designed my study program, if you will, was that I sat 2 NCAA exams every 3 or 4 months, however the seedings work through the FLSC. I kind of forget now, it's been a little bit of time. And that's how I met all my requirements.
Awesome. Priscila, you said that yes, you did Osgoode.
I'm still doing the LLM at Osgoode, and I'm doing all my requirements through the LLM. And a quick note I'd like to make here on top of what Samantha said is that for people that are coming from civil law jurisdiction, they will not get an assessment right away. So you are forced to go back to an LLM. I know there are a lot of Brazilians on the call, so I think that's important to point out. And you're just going to be able to get your assessment after you successfully complete 4 courses at Osgoode or GPLLM or UBC or the University of Alberta.
Mhm.
But if you have a common law exposure, so if you did another LLM somewhere else, you can get your assessment right away. My path is a little bit different from Samantha because I decided not to take any of the challenge exams and go through the LLM, and that's it.
And I think that's sorry, Samantha, go ahead.
Sorry, Antonio. I think that's an important point to make. Like Priscilla said, it all depends on what country you're coming from and your exposure. I was only able to do the path that I chose because I came from a mixed jurisdiction, which had common law exposure. My situation would have been different if I had come from a purely civil law jurisdiction, such as Italy, for example.
And Claudia is similar to Priscila's path, I believe, right? You took your NCAA type of exams with your Master of Laws, was it?
Exactly, yeah. My cohort at the GPLLM, so 2018, 2019, I believe it's the first one who managed to cover all the requirements. People from Osgood who did the same master at the same time, I think they were missing professional responsibility. So after the full LLM, they had to take that challenge exam. Now Priscilla tells us that she's completing all of it. So I guess it's also important to check when you enroll, if you decide to enroll for a full program, what requirements they would cover and what courses will not be covered by them. The NCAA assessment, just so you know, it's very. What I would add to what has been discussed already, besides being aware that if you come from a civil law jurisdiction, the assessment will be after your first 4 exams or courses, is that you keep track of all the communications you exchange with the NCAA regarding your particular case. So if you want an assessment earlier, or you think there's a course that you don't need to take, or you have had exposure to it, you can also discuss with them and make sure that every discussion is on your file. Also, be aware that it's a long process, so stuff can change. I had 3 different file managers with the NCAA that I have to keep up to date with how my process was going. So that's the only thing I would add to what has been discussed already.
So it's funny how you mentioned that it's a long process, Claudia. I think that you did it faster than the other panelists here and pretty much like a record time. So congratulations on that. I think it was what, 2 years or under 2 years?
Yeah, under 2 years. Thank you. But just so you know, there are people who did it in less time because they already had a common law exposure or common law practice. I have colleagues from Trinidad and Tobago, from India, who from the Philippines, who's also a mixed jurisdiction, and they also there's that if you come from a common law, I don't know in the CHPA how many of us would be from a common law jurisdiction, but if you do, then you can skip altogether the articling and go straight to the bar exam and licensing. So as you say in the beginning, you are the master of your destiny here. Like you can do school, master, undergrad, a mix of NCAA and courses, or just NCAAs, and you can go as long as you want or as short as you need to. I think if you come from a civil law jurisdiction, yeah, I think under 2 years is the fastest you can expect to be done with a whole process.
All right. Thank you for that. So on my end, I was in the second cohort for the Global Professional Master of Laws. That was the first year that the GPLLM at the University of Toronto included National Committee on Accreditation subjects, and they didn't know whether the NCAA would accept or not those subjects. So it was a lot of communications back and forth with the NCAA, letting them know the topics that we were taking with the GPLLM. And to make the story short, I had a mix of exams with the GPLLM, so NCAA exams through the GPLLM, but I also had to take outside the GPLLM 5 other exams. And it was similar to what Sam was saying, that every 3-4 months I was taking 1 exam, and at the end I took 2 together. It didn't take me, Claudia, under 2 years. It took me about 4, but it's fine. I had fun. And it's fine. All right. So in the meantime that we're doing this NCAA process, what else can we do? How can we connect with the legal sector? Is there a way that we can find some opportunities for work or for volunteer work? Priscila, I think that you have some ideas about it.
Yeah, so mostly for those that don't have a lot of experience back home, or also for those that do have experience, it's very important for you to try to get connected and network as much as you can during your LLM or during your exams, the challenge exams of the NCAA. Because when you're done all this process, you're going to want to be able to find an articling position, or if you're doing the LPP after, to find a first-year associate job. So be mindful that the process is all connected and you have to plan every single step of the way, or you should try to plan as best as you can every single step of the way. So you have a few possibilities. You can reach out to lawyers and ask if they're looking for if they can take a volunteer intern, or you can join organizations from your country of origin. Myself, I'm from the Canadian Hispanic Bar Association. I joined the CHBA even before I started my LLM at Osgood. And it's just very helpful for you to be in touch with the people that are have the same background as you, because they're more likely to help you. And on the side of that, for those that are doing the LLM, I would tell to join some extracurricular groups, like join the clubs, get as much involved as you can. I know there are people that have families, that have full-time jobs, but just try to do as much as you can, and be mindful that it's not just about getting accredited, not just about getting the certification, but also about making your name throughout this process. So try to be connected to people.
That's an important advice, being connected with people. What about you, Sam? During this process, how have you managed to connect with people and get involved in work or volunteer work?
I had a bit of a unique experience because I was self-study. I was working full-time, and that created a really good opportunity to connect with my coworkers. And I was very lucky that my firm was very supportive, and I was very open with them from the very beginning about my plans and my process and where I was at. So that was very helpful, and it worked out for me. Sometimes that might not be possible for everybody. If you're in an LLM program, you may not be able to work. But there's other things like Pro Bono Ontario that I think they take volunteers. You know, the commitment is like one time a week. I would say try and build your resume and really show that you're engaged in the legal community and getting those skills. It's not just about meeting the NCAA requirements and getting that certificate. You have to be, I think, marketable in a sense and show that you have those skills. For me, how I did that is I became very involved in my firm. I put up my hand when I could to take on extra work or attend court with the lawyers to observe when I could, or take on assignments that were outside of what my role was, kind of like stretch assignments. I would volunteer as much as I could with this organization. I would talk to everybody that I could to learn more about the areas of law that I was interested in, and not just talk to them in the sense of asking them if they could give me an articling job, but really genuinely showing up to learn about their practice, to learn about their process, to learn about their path, because that provides you so much knowledge when the time comes that you are putting together your applications.
What are things, you mentioned that you had the opportunity to work, Priscila as well, doing some volunteer work. What are the things that are important to learn in those experiences? One thing that comes to mind for me is legal memoranda drafting. So for me, that was different from what I did back home, and it was a very steep learning curve. Then I learned how to draft a legal memoranda of 10 pages, and then they told me that's too long, you need to write one of 3 pages. But what else can we learn in those experiences?
I agree totally with you. 3 pages is the norm, and it's so hard to get there. I think communication skills is very important because we do communicate differently in Canada mostly through email. Like the way we draft emails, at least in Brazil, is so different than here. And I couldn't learn that until I started volunteering. I did volunteer pro bono Ontario, as Samantha said. I volunteered there for a year, and it was an amazing opportunity. They, just on the side of that, they do take volunteers every year. They have a permanent link on their website that you can send your resume. And if you're very interested, you can contact Lorene, which is the paralegal in charge. And she is like very open to talk and take on students. So you should totally try to do that.
Let's not jump in resume and cover letters yet, because I don't want to bog my mind at this point. Claudia, but what about you? I think that your experience was a little bit different. Your strategy was not so much on aiming for volunteer networks, but other type of networks. How did that work?
Well, I think and the first thing that you need to know about me in this process is that I immigrated to Canada right before starting this process. So I didn't have a long time here before I decided to pursue the legal career. It was all at the same time. So I had to make friends and build community and get familiar with the new country, and also find my way through accreditation. I did have experience from before. So the first thing I tackled this huge task was to find resources, because it can get overwhelming when you're new to everything. It's not like you're gonna tap into past past employers or friends and family, because you don't have any of those, right? So the first resource that I used was those in place for immigrants and professional immigrants. So things like TRIAC, the Toronto Region Immigrant Employment Council. They have a professional immigrant network they refer you to based on self-identity or profession. And in my case, since I worked for 5 years in energy and environmental law, you can also look for industry-specific networks, meaning engineering associations, environmental associations. I did volunteer. I volunteered for the United Nations Association, the Toronto branch. I was co-chair of the environmental committee together with Diana Chu, who is a worker at the City of Toronto. So that helped me a lot just to put in practice my organization skills, like my communication skills. We put together panels. We reached out to ambassadors and councils. So it was a mix of my passion, environmental law and international law. I also volunteer with the FCJ, which is a very popular association who provides services to new immigrants. So that would be in terms of networking. But what I can add to all of the great advice that Samantha and Priscila have given us already is that you have to regroup. Like if you just got here, you need to regroup. You need to know what you can afford in terms of time, money, and energy, because it's tiring. You just got on a plane and left all your family and friends behind. It can get exhausted. So it can get exhausting. So I would say take your time to regroup, get familiar from just, I know a lot of internationally trained lawyers have a lot of experience and are professionals and respected. So you have to allow yourself to be a beginner again and learn everything from scratch and take on the good habits that you can learn. So for example, skill assessment, workbooks on job hunting, learn everything from the beginning. It's gonna give you that confidence to be able to, okay, this is my plan, this is what I'm gonna do.
It's interesting that I'm listening you three, and what I hear is, yes, you could design things, you could go here, you could go there, change, tweak, and so on, but you have to put the time, you have to put the commitment to get there, whether it is within 1 year, whether it is in 3 years or in 5 years. It really doesn't matter. What matters is that you put the commitment to achieve your goal, and grabbing that goal like a dog grabs a bone. There are a few questions coming in, and we're going to read those. Please continue to send the questions. So on my end, there are two things that I would repeat for that purpose of getting experience in Canada. One, the networking piece. At early stages, I became a member of the. It was back then changing names, but it was the Hispanic Ontario Lawyers Association, OLA. Apparently, all Hispanic associations start with that acronym because it's catchy. I don't know. And then it changed to the Canadian Hispanic Bar Association, which it is, that's the name it has now. But I started with them early days in my process, and I got to know 15, 20 lawyers in different areas of practice and in-house and so on. And I got to know them and connect with them. So one of them in particular was very helpful when I got my license in 2016, because I was able to work with him for a couple of years. So that planting those seeds really early with networks, it's important. The second thing is this volunteer work that Priscila, Sam, and Claudia are mentioning. I volunteer for the Human Rights Legal Support Center, and my volunteer work with them, they focus on the Human Rights Code of Ontario. That's the law that they actually work with, and they represent individuals in the Human Rights Tribunal at the Human Rights Tribunal of Ontario. But the work that I did with them, what I learned a lot was summarizing decisions from the Human Rights Tribunal of Ontario for the lawyers to read. That was a great exercise for me, because I got to understand, at least for the Human Rights Tribunal of Ontario, the way that they wrote their decisions, and the words that they use, and got familiar with that content. And the second thing was working with a lawyer who assigned me to draft these legal memoranda about one ground of the Human Rights Code, which took me 10 pages to finish. It was too long anyways. It doesn't matter, but it was a great experience. And that built on, I was able to, after that volunteer work, a few months later, I was able to work for that same office as a human rights advisor for a couple of years before I started the law practice program. But I echo what Claudia, Sam, and Priscilla are saying about networking with different organizations, associations, and also trying to get involved with some legal work that you can get a hold on. So now we went through the NCAA, we had some working experience, and we got the certificate of qualification. Yay! Now what? What's after that? What happens then? Not everybody at the same time.
I can jump in for that.
All right.
So the NCAA is for us internationally trained lawyers, the equivalent of the requirement of competence, because the Law Society, for you to get you licensed, requires competence, the experiential training, which is articling or LPP, and the bar exam. So once you have the NCAA, that's the milestone, the key milestone for starting the licensing process. And as you said before, the licensing process includes an experiential training and the bar exam. So again, it's time to regroup and you have to decide what you're going to do, why, and keep in mind your resources. For example, in my case, I just couldn't afford to do the LPP because it would be 10 months of unpaid full-time dedication. So I chose to go to the articling, and I narrowed my search to find a potential employer that could actually allow me to reduce my training experience to the minimum, and at the same time who paid me. So of course, then when you go job hunting, you have to communicate that and be transparent with your potential employers and keep in mind why. Then there's a bar exam, and then for that you also need to assess your resources. Are you going to study full-time, part-time, while working? How long? Are you going to do both in one sitting? Are you going to do one first and then the other? Are you going to start articling and taking the bar exam at the same time? So again, it's a matter of really knowing your your abilities, and your external limitation as well. So those two, in my case, the bar exam came first. I studied full time for 6 weeks and completed those 2 months after the end of my program. And the articling started also 2 months after that.
How long was your articling for?
My articling was reduced from 10 months, the mandatory term, to 1 month. But that 1 month I completed in 4 months because I did it on a part-time basis on top of a full-time job.
Right. Awesome. Congratulations for that.
Thank you.
What about you, Priscila? And I'm just looking at my screen, and Priscila is there, and then Sam is far to the right. So, Priscila, what's on
So
your
I
case?
am not still in the licensing process, but kind of. I'll explain what route I took. I am still going to write the bar exams next year. I'm going to do it before I start articling. I thought it was easier for me to separate both. And also, I am working for the Ministry of Attorney General, as I said. And usually they ask us to finish the bar exams before. So it was also a requirement of my articling. And I didn't have to apply for articling. So that's something I want to talk with you all. The articling recruitment is happening right now, and it's going to be open until September 25. We do have more information at the ITLNCA website. And I'm not going to be applying for that because I'm currently a summer student at the MAG, and I was offered a position to come back next year. So for big law firms and for the government, that is one of the most usual routes for you to get in. That is something I wanted to point out, that if those positions are the ones you want, it is probably easier for you to get in first applying through the summer recruitment. That is the OCI process we were talking about earlier. That is going to be happening this year in February. And then when you are summering at the place you're going to be, they will usually hire you back for articling, and you won't have to apply for articling. So that is the route I'm taking. I'm still doing everything in the end, but I just kind of had the chance to skip that step of applying to an articling position.
Awesome. Fingers crossed, everything will work out. So on my end, the law practice program, I was actually offered an articling position a few months before I had to make that decision whether I would go with the law practice program or with the articling that I was offered. And I leaned towards the innovation in training and the structure that the LPP was building at that point back in 2015, I would say. And to make the long story short, the articling position that I was offered actually became my LPP placement a few months later. So I think that I got the best of both worlds. And when I say the best of both worlds is that it depends where you do the articling, that you will have a great experience, and there are great places out there that you can have a great articling experience, but it is a hit or miss. I know that Samantha is having a great experience where she is. I know that Claudia had a great experience. Priscila is going to have, I'm pretty sure, a great experience. But I wanted to have control over that period of time. And for me, it was, well, I want to have as much experience in as many areas of laws as I can. And the LPP is designed for the 8 areas of competence that the Law Society puts out there for us to show that we're prepared to start practicing law. And that's criminal and administrative law and so on. That's one thing. The second thing was the business development component that the LPP brings to the training. And it was for me understanding that, well, maybe in 3 years or in 5 years, I would want to open my own practice, or maybe the economy is not as great as it was before, because who knows, COVID may happen. So, and yeah, I know that I shouldn't be joking about COVID.
You were preparing for this from long ago.
I was thinking, yeah, paranoid as I am, legal mind. So the business component was very important for me. And the third piece that the LPP was bringing to the training was this technology behind it. So technology, business, and the areas of loss altogether was that innovation in training, in transitional training, that attract me more than other options. And again, as I said before, I had the best of both worlds, because the same articling that I was offered became, and I was lucky in that sense, and I appreciate the firm that did that for me, became a placement later on. So is having a mentor useful? And how can you build a good connection with a mentor, or how to find a mentor? I like this question.
It
I
is
love
very,
this question.
and Antonio and Samantha are my mentors, so it is very useful. So I didn't really look for a mentor specifically. I just built the connections and just kept talking to them frequently, and that's how I consider them a mentor. I never even asked. I'm just announcing here to them. And I did have a mentorship program through CHBA, and there are some other organizations that have formal mentorship programs. But I think the easiest way to find a mentor is just find someone that has a path that you want to go through, or someone that you identify with, or you just think they're friendly, and either ask them to be your mentor or keep a connection, keep talking to them. Once you start to ask questions a lot to that person, and like they keep replying, telling you what to do, they are a mentor even if you didn't ask for. So sometimes we do have mentors without knowing it, but it's very helpful. Like it's good to have someone that is going to tell you what to do, other than just being lost in the dark.
Sam?
I think having a mentor is very important. Some of my mentors found me, and some of my mentors, I forced them to be my mentor. So Antonio is one of those people. And then there's a few individuals in my firm that it happens when you have a certain type of chemistry with an individual, and then you just hit it off, whether it be as like work friends or whatever, and you trust their opinion. And also I would say mentorship is a two-way street, right? Mentors help you, but then also try and help your mentors as well. Like some of my mentors, I've helped them on really big projects, and not only did it provide me an opportunity to work on a stretch project or stretch assignment, but it also took a big load off of my mentors' plate, and it made them, want to invest in me more.
Thank you, Sam. What about you, Claudia?
I agree with everything the girl said, but I'm gonna push it a little bit more, and I'm gonna say I love mentorship, whether it's a structure or organic. I think you're gonna get faster to where you want to if you can really tap on that wonderful resource. So as I mentioned before, I tapped into industry-specific resources, and I got a mentor through there. Also, people can refer you to people. Oh, you should meet this person, or you should meet this other person. The Law Society, once you're licensed, they have also mentorship connections, coaches. If you're a woman, if you're Hispanic, there are women association that can provide you with mentors. There are immigrants association that can provide you with mentors. But I think the only thing I would add is, even though you have to have a chemistry, you have to add value to their life. You have to be clear on your goals. You cannot just take someone else's time to just wander and ramble around without like a real destination to aim for, right? So if you choose a mentor in a specific industry, where do you want to get to that industry? Where do you want to end up? What's the, you have to have a clear path, or at least be clear that you need help clarifying your path and frame your questions in that direction. I have several mentors. All of them have completely different personalities. Some of them are in academia. Some of them are in-house in mining companies. Some of them are in government. Some of them are in associations that serve values and communities that I find interesting and I want to give back to. So all of that for me, it's like a new world. I come from, like, I'm Peruvian, so we come from a culture where your boss is your friend, and also and also your boss, and also your colleague, and also a mentor. So everything is kind of mixed. And here it was a new world for me to find structure, and to find professional relationships, and to find a different approach to the way you can build each other up.
And thank you for speaking so well about mentors. There are 6 associations that have helped and supported the ITL NCAA networks. That's the South Asian Bar Association, the Canadian Hispanic Bar Association, the Federation of Asian Canadian Lawyers, the Arab Canadian Lawyers Association, the Hellenic Canadian Lawyers Association, and I'm missing one, the Canadian Association of Black Lawyers, CABLE. So all of those associations, and the Ontario Bar Association as well, who have helped us hosted some events already. All these associations will have mentorship programs. So reach out to them. In our website, we have those 6 associations listed. So if you go to who we are, you will see the links to those associations. They have mentorship programs, so use them. And as everybody said, Samantha, Priscila, and Claudia, don't throw everything at the mentor. Just come prepared to have a meaningful discussion with the mentors, and you will have a better result.
Antonia,
Claudia.
and I would add to what you just said, if you do use a structure program, if you do use like one of these associations, take the time to provide feedback, take the time to read the resources. If you have no idea right now what is mentorship for, go to those websites. They have manuals, workbooks, worksheets, planners, tell you exactly the key points, what to expect, how to find a mentor, how to communicate with them in a professional manner. So that all of that information, I know it may seem basic, simple, and for beginners, but we are immigrants and we are beginners in so many aspects of our life. So take the time to do that, and it's going to pay off for sure.
Priscila, one last comment before we go, to encourage our participants today to continue moving forward.
Just be mindful of what you have, like skills, and never, ever, ever think you're worse than the people that are doing the JDA programs. Like, we have so much to add to the table. We have sometimes another language. We have experience of litigation in another country. We have communication skills. We have so much to add. So never undersell yourself. Like, always try to show your best face, and just put yourself out there, be polite with people, and you're going to be shocked of how many people want your help. Like, reach out to people, ask for help, and plan your career, and best of luck.
Thank you, Priscila. What about you, Sam? What do you want to tell our participants?
I would say really take advantage of all the resources that are out there. I know it can seem very overwhelming, but there are a lot of resources out there, like our organization, like all the other organizations Antonio just listed. Do your own research. Read everything you can and plan as best as you can for yourself, because how you plan your path, only you will know what's best for yourself. Your mentor, although they can give their opinion and feedback and might be able to point you to certain things, they aren't in the exact same position that you are in. Everybody's position is different. So only you know what is best for you. So that's all I can say about that.
Thank you, Sam. What about you, Claudia?
I think I resonate a lot with what Priscila said. Never understate your skills. Never undersell yourself. Be very aware of what you bring to the table, and the same with Priscila. But I would just add, also be flexible, be adventurous. I mean, you left your country, went to a new country for a reason. Like, there is ambition and there's bravery in that decision. And I know you will need some time to regroup and readapt, but try to tap back into that bravery and into that flexibility, because as COVID has taught us, things can change from one minute to the other, and you need to be ready to adapt, to regroup, to tap into new endeavors, and you have to do it with a big smile and with bravery, and everything will pay off, I promise.
Thank you, Claudia. Thank you, Priscila. Thank you, Sam. And what you can see, everyone here, you're not alone. We are all doing this. We're sharing our experiences, and some of us are ahead because we got here before, but it doesn't matter. We're all in the same path, and I'm happy to see that we have a growing network, stronger professionals, way more professionals than before. I wish you all stay safe, healthy, keep moving forward. You can walk, you can crawl, you can run, whatever the speed, it doesn't matter. Just keep moving forward towards your goal. You're going to achieve it. Thank you, everyone, for being here, and we'll see you next time.